Hi guys, welcome to the Together with ellesse. My name is Franklin Boateng, aka the King of Trainers. I'm based in London, and today I have a very, very, very special guest to launch this podcast with ellesse, Togetherness. We have the one and only Cali Vegas. How you doing, sir?
I'm good. Thank you for that. That's quite the intro. So I'm good. And I'm glad to be here. Glad to be the first. Nothing like being the first, right?
Yeah, no, we had to get you as the first, man. We had to get you as the first, you know. So I think what we will do to start this, is with ellesse, a lot of people don't know the history of the brand. And I'm always about history. So let's start off with your history, and so we can kind of get a picture about your history in the footwear game and how
mine probably goes back. I'm an older guy around that, so mine is purely on the consumer side in terms of the 80s. I wanted to play tennis growing up. I actually grew up in Southeast Washington, D.C., so I was a huge fan of tennis. So that probably first attracted me to trainers.
Yeah, we say trainers.
We have tennis shoes. You guys have trainers. So
yes,
a lot of the Euro brands I first learned through tennis, like, be it Fila, ellesse, Theodore, Sergio Tacchini, those brands. So I really started purely as a consumer, and I wanted to get all these sneakers because I wanted to look like my favorite players, right?
Yeah, I had
that. So from there, it kind of just merged into, I guess, more telling stories around that. One thing that always fascinated me with sneakers, I think, is just not so much where'd you buy those, but why'd you buy those? I was always fascinated with why a person purchased one pair versus the other, because 80s was more about a uniqueness. So rarely did you see in a room full of 100 guys, you rarely see two people with the same shoe. It was just something you didn't really see. People went out of their way to have something different and unique to their own. So I think I started getting fascinated with that. I started writing blogs around that, like late 90s, early 2000. And then before the IG boom, there was sneaker forums. Everybody was kind of connected, like sneaker forums. Crook and Tongue, I think, was my first forum, and those were mostly European guys. So I think it was rare to have an American guy who actually had trainers and was fascinated with the trainer culture and knew a lot about that. So from Crooked Tongues, I think I merged over to shoegame.com. Those guys, shout out to them, G-Rock and those guys. And that became like Sneaker Family. And then through that, I think once IG kind of opened up, a lot of brands start reaching out directly to people, right? They start just kind of DMing you directly. ellesse being one who reached out to me, more so because they wanted the OG models.
Okay.
They a lot of retro initially, and they wanted to get a mold of the OG models. So I helped a few brands kind of kickstart that. And then it, I guess upon more discussion, it kind of talked about really what the 80s were like, because I think you and I talked, as a matter of fact, first time I came over to London, and talked a little about, because I think most people have the story of the 80s and that Euro invasion around 88 and 89 when hip hop boomed. And in fact of the matter, it did get to a widespread audience, but prior to that, tennis was the boom. Because Becker, Becker 85, so you got the Becker top. Becker and the Carlson top. I love that. This is my favorite top. But that's where it started long before that. Like, even when you look at a lot of the early models that we loved and fell in love with, they were 82, 83, 84. And they still continued to make great models throughout the 80s and early 90s, a lot of these brands. But that boom, that curve happened a little before 88. I think that was some of why a lot of brands really kind of reached back out to me to really kind of tell that story or get an idea of that story. So with ellesse, that was my connection. I think around the Tanker when they reached out to me about that shoe.
Okay, no, that's fantastic. I mean, it's funny because in the UK, a lot of people kind of look at, I mean, there was, terrace culture, which is the football culture, but people don't, maybe some people don't understand that all the football terrace guys were wearing tennis shoes. They were looking at the tennis players, right. And I think sometimes the tennis actual history gets overlooked, and I mean, I'm even though I look young, I'm I'm not a spring chicken. And I remember like when I was younger, looking at a lot of the kind of football guys before hip hop really kind of infiltrated the UK. A lot of people wearing like the tennis type of gear, you know, like the tops like this and things like that. Yeah. So exactly. I mean, yeah, I think it's also important to kind of explain to the people like the impact of, because I keep on telling people like if you look at like OG Americans like yourself, it was all about unique tennis shoes. Like it's not what happens now. Like a lot of these young kids, they want what everyone else has got, but it was about unique tennis shoes. Can you kind of explain about like the searching and?
Sure. I think one of the biggest things then, it wasn't really looked at as a tradable commodity. I think when you look at sneakers now, people look at the resale versus mostly anything else. Back then, we looked at from a fashion standpoint. We were going to buy this pair, and to your point, uniqueness. We had to be in the U.S. because distribution wasn't as large spread, right? You had some big box stores, but there were a lot of mom and pop stores. And so a lot of times, I think even then, I don't think any Euro brands were doing analytics or statistics on inner city buying of the shoes.
Yeah.
You know, so you may get where you get a couple of different models from Fila, a couple from Sergio, but it wouldn't be as consistent. So you would have to really scour the city and go look for tennis shops.
Yeah.
And running shops, because then those were specialty shops where now you may have a couple of those, one or two, but they're big chain stores where they may have the higher performance runner or the higher tennis shoe with the rackets. But back then it was more mom and pop based. So you could really fall into a place that no one had familiarity with and pick up pairs of the Borg Diodors that nobody had. And that was really the key, to kind of be unique and first. So we really spent Saturdays, because then one of the differences then, you know, you had no release date.
No.
Most times, So most times we looked in magazines, Tennis World, Running World, and we would see a shoe, but it wouldn't tell you if it's coming. You just see advertisement. So we'd go on the hunt and try to find that shoe. From those publications.
And I think that's what's kind of missing with now, because the internet has made the world so small. I remember when I was coming up, you know, you have to hunt for the shoe, and the excitement of seeing the new release. You know, there was a store here called Olympus Sports back in the day, and that store was like the store, and it used to do US imports, but like the first week it does US imports, it'll be half price to kind of test the pricing. And I remember I used to go, I think like Tuesdays, either Tuesdays or Thursdays, and I used to always try to, you know, every Saturday I'm like, Mom, it's come in, we need to go to Olympus. And it was just the kind of discovery, like you see the shoe and it's that whole, we found it, moment. Do you get what I mean? Right. But now, you know, the internet, you know, it's the good and the bad. You know, someone post it on Instagram and then all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, but the treasure hunt's not there no more.
Right. You know? Well, you know, I always say it's a good and bad. That is a good analogy, or the gift and the curse. It's kind of the gift and the curse, right? Yeah. So even for a lot of brands, they see something, they see the likes behind something, and they make the assumption, if I bring that back, that's consumer dollars. And it's not always the case. Sometimes we like nostalgia for nostalgia. We don't necessarily want to relive that in some cases. But I just thought the Euro brands, where they really had the success at, they weren't intended for streets. And when you hear a lot of brands say that now, oh, we're going to bring it back to the streets, it spilled over to the streets. You know, the streets absolutely adopted that style, but it was because it was made for tennis players. It was made for the Borgs, the Beckers. Those styles weren't made for inner city youth, but that's what made them so fresh to us. To be like, wow, okay, I want to dress like this guy, Yannick, Noah, you know, Ash, those guys in the full apparel is who we wanted to be. And so that's what I think is missed, because a lot of times when you hear brands, you know, that's probably, the streets. Well, that was kind of just by happenstance, and it took off, but it really was for those who were in tennis first. There was a little small segment of us who enjoy tennis who really looked for a lot of that stuff because we adored the players.
Yeah. And I mean, like, I want to talk about also the price point of the shoes, because I mean, when I was younger and my mum loved tennis, And that's kind of obviously how I got my nickname, you know, when Boris Becker won his championship in '85, and she'll buy me all of the shoes that he wore. I mean, it was still pretty expensive, you know, it was still pretty, so, you know, to get, you know, the ellesse tankers back in then, and they were pretty pricey for that time, you know, it hasn't really kind of moved much in price.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know what, because the time, one of the interesting byproducts of that, even now as I go back in hindsight and look into a lot of the shoes, there was the theory that these were Italian premium leather, like a lot of the Euro lines, even though most of the shoes were Indonesia, made in Indonesia plants or Taiwan. But the thought was, there was even advertisement around '85. I think Foot Locker had an ad where it said Italian premium. And I thought, oh, if the cows speak Italian, then this leather is going to be fantastic. So you paid a little more, because up until that price point, you're right, you didn't see a lot of that. Like when the Fila, it was the original, but they changed it to T1. That came in at 100 plus. I think New Balance was probably the first runner. The 1300 really busted the pocket. That was literally 139. I think that was. But most of the Euro brands could go 100 because, again, it wasn't really made for that market space. But once that market space caught on, they just paid. But, you know, I've told the story before. The first Fila sweatsuit I think I owned was $325.
Wow.
You know, that was for the sweatsuit.
Wow.
And that was in tennis stores, Racket and Jog and Players and Princess. It was just high priced, and you just accepted it as that because, again, we thought, this is Europe. This is how they do. This is Italian. This is Europe. This is how they do. So that's what I think where the marketing strategy worked the best at, where that market came over to the brands. It wasn't the other way around. They weren't making it to say, hey, this is for the streets. You know, it was like, hey, this is over here. And if you want it, come over here. You know, and we just thought, what are they doing over there? I want it. I'm going to go over here and pay that price for it.
Yeah. And I also want you to kind of talk about, because you're a doctor and a professor, right?
Yes.
And
yes.
Yeah. And I want you to talk about how the economic impact, because back then, you know, even though the boom, we thought it was a lot of shoes out. We thought like there was a lot of shoes, but now compared to now, it's just like, so I just want you to kind of explain the kind of impact economically. Like,
well, it's insane. I think back then, of course, it was a high dollar business. But to your point, you're right. A lot of times when they put those price points, either you could afford it or you couldn't. You know, and distribution wasn't a ton coming over here. So most people, there was still enough brand diversity where people still had a choice. You know, if you couldn't afford Fila, then you got Reeboks, you got Aviators, you got Adidas, because one time Fila and Sergio and ellesse was higher priced than those shoes I'm naming now. And Adidas models and the Nike models, you know, because I think the Jordan, when it first came out, was something like $49 or something. So these shoes were, you know, the Euro brands had established a placement. But again, there were so many different brands, and Brooks, you know, these different brands, people could find a comfortable niche. And at that time, because of the brand diversity, brands put work into product and research. They weren't just giving you they were general releases then, not the collaborations and other things we hear today, but some of them were just astounding models. You know, some of the tech that went into some of those $49 and $59.99 price points was amazing when you compare them to what's today. You know, like I tell people all the time, bespoke, when people show me their bespoke the Air Force Ones. I got general release Nikes from '91, $69, that the leather is comparable. It's the same match. So I think back then, you know, again, there was a certain segment, but there was enough diversity where it didn't drive the business. So even though there was high end, that's all right. There were a lot of people who just kind of played in the middle. They didn't go up to the high end footwear. They just kind of stayed in the middle. Where now, based on a lot of really the hype around a lot of shoes and how shoes are driven, now you got to play in that price point to even seem like you have something worth something. Or a lot of, you know, or a lot of people playing that price point for the resale. So a lot of times when shoes go off the shelf, they're going to go on the foot for a quick picture on IG. Look what I got. And then they're going to be sold to the next guy. It's not a lot of wearing. I tell people all the time, even when I walk around the city, when I teach, I've been teaching 17 years, doctor of education. I don't see half the young people in what I see on IG.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure they have those shoes, but they probably sold them, or they're in a vault somewhere, or they've got a bank loan. I don't know. It's just, so now the market is purely driven by not just the top, the big stores making money. Everybody can make a buck in terms of that. What it seems, everybody wants to make a buck versus, and what happened, quality goes out the window in a lot of cases. There's no real quality put in because you're not wearing it. I think the interesting thing you talked about when I heard your story, your mom buying the trainers, our moms were a lot of consumers for our first trainers and first high-end shoes. So they know if you came back with any problem or spoke ill about any pair that she spent some money on, she's going back to the store and they're going to hear a mouthful about that shoe, and that shoe's going back to the company, and they're going to have to try that. You know what I'm saying? So we're now, you don't really get a lot of, people do the reviews and stuff on YouTube and things like that I watch, but you don't get a whole lot of feedback. Companies don't, because people aren't wearing them. Like I've not seen cats on the floor on the basketball courts with Jordans. I really haven't.
I know.
I just don't see dudes balling in those at the Y or anywhere I'm around pickup games. I'm like, I don't see anybody with half of those shoes that they show. So I think that's the huge difference now. Now that it's really opened up an industry where it's culture driven and everybody can make a dollar. So now it's like, it's for the culture, but companies can make a dollar. The good of that is that it opens up other lanes too. There are a lot of people who've gotten creative and have other lanes, and they should. Because I think just like the diversity in the 80s, there should be representation here. And this should, for those who can retell the stories and those who can create, we should have that same type of representation. And I'm glad in a lot of cases we do, especially your upcoming shoe is my prime example of that. That's going to be something.
I appreciate that. Speaking of upcoming shoes, I mean, I think for me, ellesse in the 80s and 90s was like one of the premium brands, and I think that sometimes, especially with today, with all the noise going on and things like that, when I kind of looked at the opportunity to be with you guys in the design council, I was like, okay, how can I really tap in to my personal history and then look at ellesse's history and then be like, okay, so this is this is what I'm gonna do. Do you get what I mean? So speaking of that, I mean, can you kind of explain the kind of relationship and how ellesse reached out to you for your particular shoe?
Sure, and that's one. Let me say shout out to the folks at ellesse, because they were one of the few brands, as I go through the story, that truly reached out and truly brought me into the fold. Because for years, I always tell people, you don't see me on the marquee, but there's probably 11 retros that come directly from my shoe, directly from my strategy conversations with these brands, but no mention of me when it's time to do the unveiling. And I get that too.
Oh wow.
So I think the one thing I liked about ellesse, when they first reached out, and shout out to Jonathan, it was so funny. I've told the story. They were like, we're doing something in London. We'd like to have you come over. It's a design council. And they said, well, I said, what's the brand? And he said, ellesse. I said, well, I'm not familiar with that brand. And he says, well, you wear it all the time.
Yeah.
I said, wait, ellesse. He says, no, it's ellesse. So that's the first mind blow for me. And most people who come up in my era here in the US, that it's ellesse. We were like ellesse. And I literally told him, I said, well, I don't know your brand. Yeah, and he says, it's ellesse. I said, I'm still drawing a blank. Then he's like, oh, look on your post. I said, oh, I thought this was ellesse. So he said, we're going to do this thing in London. We're going to bring some people out and you'll get to design a shoe. And I said, all right, it'll be a great trip. He wants you to come over and we'll get you to do some speaking as well about the 80s and the tennis era. So I thought, all right. So I came over and got to meet the group. I met you there as well. And I think it were 8 more people, if I'm not mistaken. Woody from Sneaker Freaker, High Sobriety guys, I remember. Julie, Sneaker Queen, Kiss Cast, of course. So we all got together in that room. They gave us an opportunity, which I thought was cool, that you could design a shoe, any shoe of your own, and they gave us any premium material we could use. And at that very moment, I thought, even at the table, I said, what if I could get a design that really encompassed you know, the history, tennis,
Yeah.
and how that meant to me. And I had that opportunity. I contacted my partner here in the States, Will, and I said, look, I want to design the shoe. I'm getting an opportunity, friends and family thing, but I want to talk about, it was the tanker that we were doing, the Saddler tanker.
Yeah.
And so I had the tanker behind me. I don't know if people have seen it.
Yeah.
I'll show I the OG. This is the OG model.
Woo, yeah.
Mark Saddler. This is 1982. And you know the funny thing now, when I'm online, it's almost hilarious when young kids come in and say, "Oh, that's the power phase."
Yeah.
This is not the power phase. No, this is 1982. There was nothing like this in 82.
Yeah.
Saddler was truly, you know, I've spoken before, a genius, truly a genius. So that's an iconic shoe, and have the opportunity to get to revision that shoe and redesign that shoe. I thought that's an opportunity too good to pass up. So I jumped on the chance, and we got the revision. I'm going to show mine now. Thank you, man. Shameless plug. But we got the revision.
Yeah.
We got the revision.
And, take us through what you did.
Sure. So first thing and again, shout out to Will Cooper, Soul on Campus, my man. We went with the long hair suede, the green, because, you know, we thought of grass courts coming up. We used to have to play on grass courts, right? That's my time spent. And on the tongue, you can see we took the tennis nets. Tennis nets, because again, it's a tennis shoe. I think oftentimes we forget that in this world, that these are tennis shoes. They're designed for tennis. Did the gum sole, but kept what Saddler did. And Saddler was innovative because this is really the first cross-functional shoe that I've come across. And again, 1982. So we kept some of that, and on the side there, you can see our apparel company, if it's still VICHSTONIAN and ellesse. And, you know, and got to do that. And I thought that was a great experience, not a pretty neat experience, but a very good experience.
Yeah. And
it got to tell, because that's where I think the separation, that people, it's tennis. That was tennis first. So even when you look at those years, that's 82. We were already into the style of Euro brands, but 88, of course, is where it really blew out of the water. So
no, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. And also, I mean, you know, one thing I do like about the Design Council, it was such a good, I really do have to take my hat off to ellesse, because it's like, I think they really thought about the type of people that, you know, some young people in there. There was some, like, you know, like ourselves, and they really thought about they didn't go for, you know, forgive me for saying, like, just hype beasts. Do you get what I mean? You know, yeah, they went for people who have put work into the communities, and I have to big them up, and shout out all the other people on the Design Council as well.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. And I thought, and what I like best, and I've shared this since I've been back, and again, I've been around these sneakers a long time. Again, I said from Crooked Tongue, even before then, there was a guy, Dallas Penn, and others.
Dallas.
Dallas, right? Dallas Penn and others, and obviously Clark Kent is a guy I talk to all the time.
Yeah.
And so what I liked about, and I told him, with the European, there's no egos there that were in the room, and there were no egos when I met yourself, Kish Cash, Julie, all just very laid back. So the whole vibe was just a good move to really create something. Nobody was there with an air about, you know, I'm here and I'm this person, that person. Everybody was there, was pretty down to earth. And that's what I think made the experience all the more better. And ellesse really, you know, like I said, they really rolled out the carpet for us to, you know, come over and even take part in that. So,
you know, in the beginning, I'll be honest, like when I went, I didn't know we were going to actually get our own shoe. Like, and to actually, you know, like when I was asking, I said, can we do anything? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, no, you can do anything. Like, I'm like, are you sure? Like, you know, and in my head, I was thinking like wild, crazy ideas, you know, and then I'll bring my shoe out just so that people can see.
Absolutely. Because yours, I didn't know the story. Like when I saw you, once I got the story, I mean, I was blown away even more. So put the story behind that for those who may not know. The story is fantastic.
Thank you. So, no, I appreciate that, man. So basically, for everyone who doesn't know, who's watching this blog for the first time, podcast, sorry, for the first time. So my shoe, it really is about like the history. And I think sometimes being a young black man from London, a lot of people may assume that I'm just about basketball or football, or do you get what I mean? And what my mum did is she loved tennis. Like literally, like if tennis was on or Wimbledon was on or anything like that was on, it was all about that channel. Like nothing is moving in the house unless like tennis is on. So, coming up, Boris Becker won his first championship in 1985. What a lot of people don't know, he had a dual deal. He had his footwear was with someone else. I'm not going to mention the names, but his clothing was with ellesse. And being a 17-year-old, I think it was a wild card at the time, to then win the championship, the Wimbledon championship, the most prestigious tennis championship in the world. It was unprecedented, and like that moment, he there's a part when he wins the championship and he holds the Wimbledon cup over his head, and he's wearing this top, the original of this top.
Right.
And I remember my mum, she was so delighted with that championship, and I kind of was like, okay, I have to kind of remember to connect it back. So what I did is I done the shoe. I don't know if you can see, the light's probably bright, but it's like dark blue to represent the arms and light blue. And then the laces are the gold championship, the gold cup that he held, So that was the first part, which is 1985. But then I remember in 1995, unfortunately, he lost, he lost the championship to Pete Sampras, the Wimbledon final, Pete Sampras. And I remember, like, from that period of 85 to 1995, my mum would be buying me what all the tennis players were wearing, So I kind of put that on the back, And then, I mean, to be honest, like, when I put it, when it launched, the campaign launched was it February? Yeah, it was February. And I remember when I announced my collaboration, I wasn't prepared myself with the kind of response that I'll be getting, So it really took me aback. It took me aback, and I was like, whoa, what's happened here? It was crazy. So, shout out to ellesse. They noticed that type of response, and they said, yo, we're going to put your shoe into production. So, fingers crossed it should be out later on this year, possibly around October, which is my birthday. So it's a double celebration, but don't worry, man. I'm going to make sure you and Will get your pair. So don't worry. You got a pair. This is official. I'm saying it live, so you got it on record, So yeah. I appreciate it. But I mean, it's thanks to you. It's thanks to you. I think it's important that I acknowledge and give you your accolades and your roses, because you really put some heat on those.
you know what? I pushed them to do the obvious. That's my thought. When I saw that, like I knew you had a following because I get to watch you. But to your point, I looked, first it was around 200 comments. And I said, again, if you're talking analytics and, as everybody talks analytics now, I said, 200, that's probably 50 shoes, I guess. And I looked again, it's 300. It's quite a bit. Looked again, 400 comments now. The likes are through the roof, but the comments. So for me, I always think when people take the additional time to comment, that's a little more than a like.
Correct.
And these comments are give me in cases, and people showing you accolades for the time in. I sent something to Jonathan. I said, hey, are you up? You guys watching this? I said, this is a whole movement right here. A whole movement. And then it was 600. And that's why I said, listen, you can't tell me that 200 shoes wouldn't have left today. If you monetize today. I said, he has a whole movement of people behind him, which I love to see. That's amazing to me, because that to me is what this comes down to. There have been so many people like yourself and others who've been telling sneaker stories, kick stories, and just sharing all these things in such passion. Would do it anyway. You're a guy, if there wasn't a camera and there wasn't a room full of people, man, this is what you just do.
Yeah. That's
just do this. You love sneakers. You have the same passion, whether it's one or two people. I knew that when we met. When we met, I said, all right, this is a genuine guy. You meet a lot of people, the people I've met in life, especially in this industry. And immediately I'm just, I'm just turned out. I don't even want to hear it. But when we talk, I said, yo, this guy, this is a genuine dude, right?
I appreciate it.
So I just questioned, what are you guys going to do about that? Because that shoes could have been out the window, you know? And so they came around. Jonathan's a smart guy. Shout out to him. And ellesse is smart. But I think, you know, what I've tried to share, that sometimes that passion will override what's happening now. Now, when you say now, and this is no knock to youth, I love the young people, but most times, even if you were born January 1st, 1980, by January 1st, 1990, you were only 10. So your affinity for ellesse and some of those, you're not going to have it. It's a guy who was preteens or kid getting shoes in 84, 85, 86. They're going to have a different affinity. So I said, sometimes you have to start there. Yeah. And that passion can carry over, but start there. But don't always start, oh, here's a 19-year-old. They have 80,000 followers. Yeah. So what? So what? You know what I'm saying? Versus a guy who's who spent all this time talking about this era, who has the Becker story. I love Becker, so I knew he needed it. That jacket, come on. That's the Colson jacket. That's a guy who could sell to me. You understand? Not in a bad way. No knock to young people. Again, we need them in life. So shout out my students and everybody. But I just thought that's authenticity you need for your brand, because your brand is no longer what it was then. You can't just say, drop something in the store like Sadler in 82 and just leave it there and think people are going to gravitate. No, you have to tell why. Like I told him, even with that jacket, when you told the story, that I connect. That's it. Holding the cup, that's a connection. Why? That's tennis. Start there, and who better to start with than you? And that's an entire movement. That's how it should be done in some cases, you know? So shout out to you, shout out to him. But like I told you before, you had already done that. My help was just pointing out the obvious. I didn't create. You've been the king, and that's your kingdom. So, you know, shout out to them, man. They nuts. I've never seen, and I've been on a lot of timelines. I've never seen a movement like that, man. I mean, literally, I was going to the barber shop. It was 200, then 300 by a guy. I sat down. I wasn't even ready for a haircut. 400. By the time I got my haircut, and I don't have a lot of hair, 500. I said, goodness. I said, look, when I told them, when ellesse was showing the collaborations, when they finally decided they were showing Design Council, I said, man, don't put us behind Franklin. Put us somewhere like before that guy, or put me 3 places behind him. Do not show me right behind that guy, man. That's like a whole king. And what they do, they show me right behind him.
But you know, I appreciate that, man. I also want to shout out, definitely shout out the kingdom and everyone. I'm very grateful. I also want to shout out my guy Emil, because we put together like a video where it shows my mum. And like she kind of explains her part and stuff, and I mean literally he put that together in 2 days. Like it was he's an amazing videographer. Shout out Emil. He's also the creator of Soul Seekers Film. I have to shout him out. Amazing guy. You know, we have
because when I saw that, I shared that link because you had given me the link. It wasn't fully up yet. I remember sending that link over to John. I said, man, take a look at this. Are you kidding me? I'm gonna buy that. If I didn't even know that cat, look at his mom's story is enough for me to buy a pair. When she told the story, I laughed a bit because she still looked a bit disappointed that Becker lost in 95. Your mom hasn't let that go yet. But I just thought how wonderful, and that's again that takes me to what I talked about initially. Why'd you get those? Not where. Why'd you get those? Then I got it. Then the whole King of Trainers thing made sense. Because when I first met, I said King of Trainers, maybe he's got a lot of shoes. I don't quite get it. Saw that story. I said, I got it. Now I got why he's called that. And it makes absolute sense. So shout out to your mom and to the video, the guy who did the video. I thought it was fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, man. I mean, I think sometimes as well, you know, because it's a nickname, you know, and some people take it the wrong way, especially in London. A lot of people got egos, so they think that I'm all about myself and stuff. But then I think once they actually follow me, they know that I'm about the community and the people, and I try my best to highlight different things about the community.
Of course.
So moving on, I see you've got some gems. I see you've got something in the background.
Yeah.
What have you got? What you got for us?
What I wanted to talk a little bit about, because again, I think we've talked about, when you think about ellesse, the tennis story is being covered now, and it'll be covered even more with your collaboration, your tank collaboration coming, and those things. I think tennis is pretty solidified. Most people connect them with tennis and skiing. Like with skiing, they were very connected. But I think with runners, when you think of runners, especially 84, 85, there wasn't really a lifestyle category. Think about 84, 85. You had gym shoes.
Yeah.
We call runners track shoes that you could wear. And you had basketball shoes, but you didn't really have lifestyle. Like, people weren't adapting runners and saying, oh, I'm just going to wear these with jeans. Most of the times, if you had runners, you were doing something in gym and you brought them to school. It really wasn't your shoe to hang around. We wore shell toes and different other Air Force and some things. So I brought some of their runners because I think innovation-wise, what I want to show you is just how they were ahead of the curve even then, that they don't often get credited for. So I'll start in 84, because 84 was a big year. It's the New York Marathon. And this is the OG pair of the NYC. Look at the bottoms.
Oh, wow.
So, this is the Apple and everything. So this is the OG pair, 1984.
Wow.
Everybody did the little trifolds then. So this pair, though, what I would point out to people when you think about this, because I think in 84 they had the winner, was Gianni Pauli from who ran, sponsored by ellesse.
Okay.
So ellesse brought the shoe. And when you think about, when we think about lifestyle shoes now, in 84, you used to wear, like, through the summer, your runners. You would wear them and then you would discard them and put on heavier shoes. In America, especially up north, the winters got a little bit cold. But these, they were the first to start. New Balance came in 85, so we get the time dates right. This is 84. This blue steel New Balance 1300 is 85. So this one, the heavier material, they started utilizing. I love the blue steel, by the way, too. And so you can see it's a good, the way aesthetically they got everything to mesh. They got the mesh, they got the suede. And this suede, you can already tell as I rub my fingers across.
Yeah, you can see.
That's suede. That's 84. It's still a wearable shoe. I still wear the shoe.
Wow.
And so I thought they were one of the first who did such a fascinating job of meshing materials together. And so that's 84. So that's one of my favorites. Another one from another marathon. This is VICHSTONIAN, if I'm saying it right. VICHSTONIAN, which is it's in Hungary. It's a marathon in Hungary. It started back, I think, in the 60s, but 84, 85, at least ellesse started putting sponsorship to it. So this shoe, again, look at the mesh. It looks a lot like the marathon, but again, it's such a heavy quality shoe for a runner, because even then they put a lot of performance into shoes, because people weren't buying for lifestyle. You were buying, and you were ultimately, some people were going to run in this shoe. Others may, start adapting it as fashion. But this one is 1985, and again, I like the little colorways, but the leather, they have the nylon, have the screen, the mesh, and
you can see
suede.
You can see the quality on that.
Yeah, you can tell. I mean, it's 1985, and it's just as solid as today. So that one, again, is another one of my favorites. This one, again, they've retroed a couple times. And this one, it's funny looking back, because this would have told me the name of the company. This is the ellesse 117. L period S 117. I would have known the name of the company had I looked here. And this, of course, this was made in Taiwan, but I never thought about that. It's the ellesse 117. It would have told me the name of the company. So again, another shoe where you look, I mean, just the mesh of materials are just so outstanding for the time when they were putting together their runners. And these became, for me, early lifestyle shoes, right? So that one, again, I think is one of my favorites. This one too, Franco Fava. This was an Italian runner in terms of that.
Look at the colorway.
Olympics as well. Yeah, look at the color. And then the molded heel. Difference, it's light too. It's one of the lighter runners. They've redone this shoe a couple times. In 2003, I think. What year
is that one?
This one, let me look for. At least keeps the year under the, if you guys were able to look, it's under the tag and to the back. Okay, this is 93.
Okay.
So,
Wow.
so it may have been an 80s drop, but this one is 93. And I know they did it in 2003. Maybe they do it every 10 years. So in
Okay.
2013, but just the plusness, and it's one of those
Ooh.
colorways that are different, but I love the
Look at the
molded heel.
hole. Yeah.
Yeah, I love this shoe. And again, they've done it a couple times. They even had a pack where somebody got in and did a famous pack of them. And then the last one, because I picked out 5, hard to pick just my 5.
Yeah.
This one
Yeah.
I love. This is the Hydra.
Top
This is
5.
1994, but this
Oh
is
yeah, I
all
remember
leather.
that. I remember those with a big logo.
Yes,
Yeah.
right. I love the logo, and it's cream. You know, if you can see the
Ooh.
lighting may be off a little, but this is
Mm.
a whole cream shoe. And I think that's one color that often sometimes doesn't get utilized enough,
Yeah.
but it's an entirely cream shoe, but it's an all leather runner.
Green.
And again, they're all built. Yeah, it's cream color and colorway. So I thought that was so unique. Like Fila is the one who kind of jumped out in
Mm-hmm.
84 when they did a
Mm.
whole cream T1. But those
Mm.
are my 5 favorites. And I think, again, it's one area where ellesse probably doesn't get credited because we think of
Mm-hmm.
New Balance and we think of Nike, obviously, for
Yeah.
their runners and Saucony and other companies. But I thought in terms of the aesthetic innovation of
Mm-hmm.
a shoe, I can't say for performance. New Balance obviously did a lot of performance, but aesthetically,
Yeah.
very few who could match them
Yeah. Yeah.
in the 80s. What they were doing was fascinating, amazing.
Mm. No, thank you so much. Thanks so much for sharing. I'm learning right now. Like I'm so grateful. Like because whoo, that red and blue one is crazy. I mean, I think so the shoes there, what do you know the type of price points they were back in those days?
I think all under 100 actually.
Mm.
All those were under 100
And that's
runners because
the
again,
quality. Mm.
yeah, the New Balance really kind of broke the ceiling for runners in my experience. Now there may be others. I'm speaking only in my experience for 80s because when the Blue Steel came out in 85, I want to say that was maybe 139 bucks or if not more. I know it says something about break the bank or finance. It was one of the highest, retail shoes. So, but a lot of those ellesse you could find, but the difficulty was you had to find them. Like
Yeah.
distribution wasn't really consistent. So we literally went on, sneaker hunts. We had to try to find where you could find that shoe.
Yeah.
And a lot of times with ellesse, it really took some work, but it was work worth doing because I knew, quality was so good, but it really took a lot of work to find some of the shoes. They weren't in places you would normally go.
I know. I mean, and that's one thing that I really do miss about the kind of footwear or trainer culture or sneaker culture, whatever people want to say. It's those hunts, man. I mean, I was fortunate enough to travel quite young, so I would be going to I'll come over to New York, for my summer holidays, and I'll be like with my sister, and we'll be going to all the stores, because what people don't understand is back in the 80s and 90s, if you bought a shoe from, even if it was a European shoe, and you bought the shoe in the States, it won't come out back in Europe because they'll kind of break it out, in America, and then they'll bring it back to see, if it does the UK market. So I would just be buying shoes. I'll be like, oh my God, I ain't seen this here, buy it, bring it back. Then 6 months later, it comes in the stores,
Exactly.
So, and it's just those hunts, man. I mean, that's one thing I miss. I mean, you can still get it now sometimes, but I think I miss when you kind of go to a store just in the middle of nowhere, and then they just have a crazy selection of trainers and sneakers and stuff. So
yeah, because that was it. That was the thrill. Because oftentimes, again, you didn't go with a set mind of what you were looking for because you didn't know. You may have saw something on TV or something in a magazine, but you had no idea. So oftentimes, whatever you went for, you may leave with something else, and you're going to wear it out the store. Remember that? Now people don't even lace up shoes.
Yeah.
Say, I was going out the store with whatever new pair, but most times it may have been something totally different. I just happened to look around and say, oh, I didn't, you didn't realize this was coming or that was coming. Where now people know months in advance what's coming or weeks. And I think it takes some of the thrill out, some of it, but there's still those who are very passionate. Because for me, footwear is really an expression of you wherever you go. Even when I went to London, when I got over there with you guys, I looked down at everybody's footwear. I always do that in life. Even when students come in, I could have 50 in a class. I always check the guys looking like, what kind of sneakers, like, and to try to, not to be prejudging, but I always try to get, a reflection of who they are by your sneakers. Like I can almost tell, like, but as you spoke about lately, everybody comes in with Concords or the 11s or the 3s or the same versus where, there was a time where so many different pairs.
Yeah.
It'd be amazing.
Yeah. And I mean, sometimes, to be honest, I don't even blame some of these young kids, because sometimes some of the brands, the advertising is so aggressive, it doesn't give them a choice anyway. It's like you're either gonna buy it or you're not. So I don't actually blame them, man.
I think like I said, it's the era you brought up in, and for some, this is their best era, and it should be. I mean, but I think sometimes it doesn't hurt to seek out a little more information. If I have one thing I'd say, pet peeve is, like I said, I went out to one posting of the Sadler, and you had people saying, "Oh, well, that's the Adidas Power Fit." No, it's not. No, it's not. Just do a little homework. Mark Sadler was first, and then those shoes came as copiers of that. So even when you talk about runners, it's like, come on, people just try to guess. So that looks like this. That's because your frame of reference may be a little smaller. It doesn't hurt to go and just look. Google is there for a reason. You can Google and stuff if you need to.
And that's the thing. I think sometimes, it's not even a bad thing, but the bad thing about social media is people take social media as gospel, where someone will post something and be like, because I see it a lot, I mean, the thing I say about myself, without kind of blowing my own horn, I always say I've got receipts, and that's pictures from the 80s, and I've got.
I saw the young you with the Pumas. Did you ever figure out those? Did we figure out what that was?
I didn't really.
Like
I think it was the Vaders, but I haven't really kind of gone deeper into it. But so and I think sometimes with social media, what happens is the reason why we have people not knowing the history is someone would kind of fake the history and be like, "Oh, this is the shoe that set the trends," and I'll be like, "Nah, like I know, like I was there." Do you get what I mean? But but it's all part. Sometimes I think that's the excitement I get from what I do. Is I don't mind schooling them without being too kind of preachy. And just be like, "Yo, this is the real history. You got to kind of check it out." But I enjoy it. I love these conversations, and
that's for me. I mean, one thing that keeps me around social media, I'm an older guy, but I just love kick stories. And I think one time, what we didn't have in the 80s that I love, we have now the ability for people to have a platform and tell stories, because something was happening in DC or New York doesn't mean the same thing couldn't have been happening in California or Wisconsin. We just didn't know it. Yeah. So like now, one of the things that probably fascinates me more is Detroit and their whole sneaker thing. Like I follow so many guys from Detroit, TikTok, 1973. I know tag names versus names, but Ty Hopkins, those guys, when they share the top 10 history or the Fila history, it's like it for me, I love soaking that up, because I didn't have any idea. Like during my youth, I didn't travel to Detroit. I didn't travel to LA really, so I wouldn't have known, So when I kind of post OG shoes from 85 and 86 and others come in from other regions, international or domestic US, I'm always amazed when people say, "Oh, I remember that," or "Here's how we did that." And that's what I love most about sneakers. So when we got to do design council at ellesse, that's what I loved about that. I was going to hear different people and how ellesse, the brand, connected us, and then how sneakers just connect us in general. Sneakers. You're in London right now. I'm in Atlanta. We're talking about sneakers. Who would have thought 20 years ago you probably would have said, "Get out of here." With that interest, people.
It's true.
It's the world we live in, right?
No, it's a massive subculture. Also, I appreciate that guy you tagged me into his page. Like, he's got some crazy pieces, man.
It's Dexter V on Bushell. Dexter V on Bushell. Which, I mean, I've not, even today, when you see the tennis pieces, this guy, Dexter V on Bushell, I'm blown away.
Crazy.
He has entire pieces.
The full set, the kit.
The whole set, right?
I'm like, he must have, sometimes some of these guys, he either had, maybe he was a ball boy, or his dad was because he's got some priceless.
I mean, the whole pieces. Like I think I reached out to ellesse 110, just that they cue them in to say, hey, you need to connect with this dude. He has like archive pieces that of things that that weren't as easy accessible retail. Like today he's showing like a Borg and some of that stuff. I don't. He told me where he got it. I still think he's a magician of sort, but very cool guy for those who follow. So you got to get his name. By the time this shows, you got to put his name somewhere.
We'll make sure we edit that in, man.
Right, because his account is like nothing I've ever seen. I've never seen it, and I said I've seen some personal collectors, but he rivals them. And then stores like. There's 80 Casual Corner, who I love, those guys, Neil and those guys. But this cat, he's got stuff. I mean, I would put him first and foremost. I love his page because it takes me to that era of things. And, you know, I just love that era. I think that was a big era for fashion. Tennis was real rival, fierce. You know, when you think about the personalities, Yannick, Jimmy Connors, Boris Becker, Vilas, Vilander. It was so many, you know, Agassi.
What's the American? You cannot be John McEnroe. We can't forget McEnroe.
Mac. There you go. Mac. So there was so many big personalities. I think that's what really propelled a lot of us early wearers or consumers of Euro brands. That was so huge in terms of bigger than life. And you know, it's come full circle now where it became lifestyle, where lifestyle became a category. But then we weren't even thinking in terms of that. We were just buying runners and just wearing them with jeans because you know, that's what you did. So now it's a whole.
And you know, sometimes I'll be honest, like, because I'm from, you know, Ghanaian heritage, and what my dad used to do is as soon as my shoes started to get a bit battered, he'd be like, "Kujo, we're taking them to Ghana," and that, you know, I'm thinking the amount of shoes that. OG pairs that he took to Ghana, and I'm like, no, you know. But you know, back then you're like, okay, it's okay. Like, but now you're like, no, you know, like so.
I think that's what probably has helped me through I've been a hoarder. So even when there was no reason for that, like now there are a lot of collectors. I always cringe when people say collector. I cringe because I wear these. Like I don't think of it as a collection. I think of it as just an extended rotation. So I've always kept shoes because it just transports me to a time where so when I put them on, and most times, let's be honest, my OGs are gonna anything that they make a duplicate. I'm really gonna have a preference for my OGs in terms of that. But this is the first time coming around with the shoes in the fall where yours is on deck. Where I'm really excited about Euro brands because it's reimagined. It's the now. You know, it's 80s. Sadler was 80s, but it's the 2020 telling of that through voices and people that should be able to tell that story. It's a very fascinating story, and Becker should be proud. Even though contractually he might can't say, but he should be very proud.
Yeah, it's true. I'm waiting for him to get back to me, so we'll see. So
go ahead.
So what's the future for yourself and your brand and you know, what's the future for you guys?
Well, I mean, right now, I think I was talking to my partner the other day, and we were telling him. I mean, we're still in talks with ellesse, and I hope that comes to fruition.
I'm pressing them for that. I'm pressing them for that.
And I appreciate that. So I think that'll come to fruition. I mean, we have our apparel line that'll be out pretty soon. Of course, the virus kind of stopped up a lot of things, but we still have those things in motion. But obviously, it's slowed down. But I told him the other day, as serious I'm telling you, I said, you know what? I said, Franklin's thing is going to be the change in how brands go forward. I said, it may not impact Nike, Adidas, because they do their own thing.
It kind of already has. I ain't gonna speak too soon. It kind of already has impacted them. I can't really.
I can say trust. I know. Trust. I know. But I said it's gonna be the change now because now representation matters, and now you have to look at networks, not who has 1 million followers. Who has networks ready to patronize and support that person, and who's and you put in enough work for that. It's not overnight. You know, show them that this is not overnight. You can go back, like you said, you have not only receipts of pictures, you have digital receipts. Your name pops up time back. So it's never an overnight thing. But I think it is times companies look at that versus who's a friend of Kanye or who knows this person. I don't care. That's not going to make me buy shoes. But who has a story? And yours would make me buy that. The decade story. I love Becker. I said, oh, I get it. I would get that because that story resonates with me versus, hey, I hung out with Kanye. Good for you.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't make me want to buy a shoe for you. And that's no knock to people. But I'm saying the market was too driven by plugs and industry insiders and who knows this person and that person. But at the end of the day, I used to tell brands, take away what you've given away for photo ops that you sent people. How many people really brought your product? How many people brought your product? Or because somebody sells 1,000 records in a week and they have 1,000, what does that mean for you? That's not $1 for you. So really look at who has social networks with real authentic followers and who's seen as authentic. That people would say, hey, you know what, I would support that guy. You're the first of what I'm gonna believe is many. It's gonna be the first of many, and
thank you.
ellesse should be happy to get ahead of the curve. Get ahead of the curve. ellesse should be happy.
Thank you so much, man. Like, no, I think you know, I'm just grateful, man. And you know, I think it's just something that, you know, hopefully other brands can see. But I'm just happy ellesse saw it. And you know, and I'm going forward with my first collaboration with them. So I want to salute.
Congrats, man.
Yeah.
Congrats. That's well earned. So congrats.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, I think we'll end it on that note, man. I mean, you know, I just want to say a massive thank you. You know, we have the same name, Franklin, Cali, Vegas, world famous.
You know what's so funny about that? Now the tag name has become so synonymous. Like even when I visited you the first time in London, I was in the airport. I remember calling Jonathan, and I'm like, "Look, man, I'm waiting for the car," you know, because they were saying, "Oh, we're on a time crunch." And he said, "The driver's there." You know, I said, "I don't see him." And I called the service, and they said, "Oh," I said, "I'm Dr. Frank Richardson." He was like, "Nah, you Cali Vegas?" I said, "Oh, yeah, I'm too." So at the big signings day, I looked right past it. Now it's taking on that, but.
Oh, that's crazy.
That guy too, but all right. But I appreciate you having me on, brother.
No,
best of luck with everything.
We're gonna do it again, man. You know, so this is the first of many. We, you know, it's the ellesse Together podcast. You know, featuring myself. You know, hosting, and we have the world famous Cali Vegas. I gotta give you a round of applause, sir. You know, thank you.
I thank you for that.
Thank you so much, man.
Thank you.
No, I'll hit you up, and you know, I need to come. I need to come out to Atlanta, man. I need to come out.
You should. You really should. Well, you know what? By the time once your thing gets in production, I mean, you got to do it in store for the U.S. And I got the spot for it. So you got to come here to do that.
We're gonna work on it. We're gonna work on that.
All right.
Yeah. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate it.
All right, man.
You take care.
All right, now. You too.
Bye-bye.
Peace.